There are a few keys worth knowing in an Excel worksheet to effectively move around quickly. What I've done is, in the file Excel 1, which I still have open, is I've gone to the sheet called Clients, and you can see this at the bottom of my screen. I'm just going to click in the middle of this data. Now the first thing I want to do is I want to go to the last cell that contains any data, which in this case is red and is F14. If you press the key combination CTRL End, you'll go diagonally to the last cell that has data in it. If you press the key combination CTRL HOME, you'll go to the very first cell, which is always A1. So diagonally CTRL End, END, and CTRL HOME to A1. If I go back to CTRL End, if I want to go to the beginning of a row that I happen to be sitting in, I'll hit the Home key by itself. When you go to the Home key and press it, you'll go to the beginning of the row you're in. So for example, if I move down a little bit and to the right a little bit, if I hit the Home key, I go to the beginning of that row. If there's a specific cell I want to jump to or go to directly, then I'll use the key combination CTRL G. You can also find Go To, which is what CTRL G is short for, on the Home tab in the ribbon in the Editing group under Find and Select. You'll find Go To. And if I rest on it, it actually says that the shortcut key is CTRL G, and it's faster than scrolling. It lets you jump right to a specific place in the workbook. So I'm going to click on my spreadsheet, press CTRL G, and the Go To dialog box comes up. Maybe I want to go to D10. So I'll type D10. It doesn't matter about uppercase or lowercase, and I'll press Enter. And I've jumped immediately to D10. If I go CTRL G and I go C8 and Enter, I've gone immediately to C8. That's all very well when you're in quite a small area, but imagine if you wanted to jump quite a distance. It would save you a measurable amount of time. For example, I might go CTRL G and I want to go to Z5000. So I type Z5000 and I press Enter. And that's exactly where I am now. I can see that the column letter Z is highlighted. The row number 5000 is also highlighted, and to the left of my formula bar in the name box, it tells me the name of the cell I'm currently sitting in is Z5000. If I then press the key combination CTRL HOME, I've gone back to A1. So certain keys are very, very useful. Now let's try some of these keys in the sheet called Products. So I'm going to go to the sheet called Products. If I press CTRL HOME, I go to A1, CTRL END, END, I've gone to F78, so that tells me that there's 77 products in this list, or 78 rows of data, and then back to CTRL HOME. It's also important to understand the control arrow keys. If I go CTRL right arrow and there's no data in this particular sheet, as we saw in one of the earlier videos, you'll go to the last column, which is XFD. But because there's actually data in the sheet, if I go CTRL right arrow, then I've actually gone to the last piece of data actually typed in this row. If I press CTRL right arrow again, I'll go to XFD, which basically tells me, if I go CTRL left arrow, that there is nothing in between columns F and XFD. That's a big wasteland. And I press CTRL right arrow to get back to the beginning of that row. So CTRL right arrow and CTRL left arrow will move you to the left and the right where there's data, and ultimately will throw you to XFD when there is no more data. CTRL down arrow will take me to the bottom of the list. And if I press CTRL down arrow again, then I go to the last row, 1,048,576. And if I press CTRL up arrow, it takes me back up to row 78. So CTRL down and up arrow basically tells me that there's nothing going on, or there is no more data from row 79 to the very bottom. There's a big blank area. And CTRL up arrow one more time to the top of the column. So try using your CTRL up and down when you want to get to the bottom and the top of the list, and control right and left when you want to get to the last and first columns. Now something else that's worth mentioning is the enter key. Let me place myself in a blank cell such as H1 and I'll type my first name. Now when I press enter, my enter key tends to keep the cursor in that cell, whereas by default, normally when you press enter, you'll go down a cell. So the moral of the story is the enter key can be customized. By default it goes down, but I've told mine not to. How you customize the enter key is by going to File in the ribbon and choosing Options. On the left hand side we choose Advanced, and it's the very first option under Advanced. I've unticked my option. After pressing enter, move the selection. By unticking it, I've said no. But if I do retick it, I can get to say what direction I want the enter key to go when pressed. And by default, yours will probably say down, that when you press enter it goes down. Well, a lot of people do data entry to the right, so they might customize their enter key that whenever they press enter, it goes to the right, and that saves them a lot of time. Myself, I actually like it that it doesn't move when I press enter. If I want to go down, I'll hit the down arrow. If I want to go to the right, I'll hit the right arrow. But if I want to stay in the current cell, I'll use the enter key because I've unticked that option. And I'll choose OK. So just be aware that the enter key can be customized and might behave differently on different machines and different logins. And I'll just delete Kathy.